Florabella on my screen. Her smile, it shines so bright. She's a queen with every scene, in the morning or the night. Recipes and good vibes flow, every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow, every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power, spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong.
Battle's got power, Florabella stands tall. Every drip, every drop, watch the haters fall. Channel sharp as thorns, ain't taking no mess. Scroll through her feed, feel that queen's finesse. Vines tangle tight, but Flora breaks free. Roots so deep, can't mess with her tree. From the mud she rises, roses from the dirt. Every comment section she lays down hurt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. From the garden green to the concrete wall, Florabella, unstoppable nature's child. Leaves whisper secrets, she's the loudest shout. From the channel buzzing, she never backs out. Seed of strength, through seasons she grows. In the face of doubt, her spirit glows. Cameras ain't a limit, she branches out. Thorns in her crown, she wears it no doubt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless.
All right, everybody. All right. I hope everyone is doing good today. I hope everyone's having a great Tuesday. You know, this is my shorter day of the week. So I was like, you know what? Let me hop on here and get into a conversation, have a topic with you guys. I am going to get back dabbling into my sort of like Manosphere conversation bag. just because I think it's really irrelevant. I think it's really relevant to a lot of the dating horror stories that we see online. I think it's relevant to the conversation about relationships today, and sort of like how I believe that red pill and manosphere has really contributed to how men are presenting in society today. Now, I don't want to just get up here and start bashing men, right? That's not what the goal of my show is. I do want to have a fact-based conversation though, right? Because a lot has changed. People talk every day about this society, men in this society, how the world is supposed to go, and what men's role is, right? We talk a lot about that, especially, right? Especially because so many men are unoccupied all day and they have plenty of time to talk about relationships. Um, Let me see what's going on in the chat here. Hey, Mr. Daniel Berry Sports, thank you so much for joining the show. We've got Joanne Jenkins. Heather says hello. Mr. Center of the World says Florida Blanco. I don't know what that means. Netflix says you spelled that wrong. And, we got people jumping in. Hey, UC Lakers. I don't know if that's like your favorite team, but thank you all for joining me here tonight. All right, we're going to have this conversation. We're going to get into it a little bit. I don't really want to come too much from a trolling perspective, just so people understand. I definitely want to have the conversation about the real makeup of the world right now, what the expectations are of men, what availabilities they have to even thrive in a patriarchy, right? Because that's the system that we live in right now. So if you guys could all do me a favor and hit the like button, we'll get into the first video here. And this video here talks a little bit about how different things are. Like seriously, how relationships have changed, how they've evolved. Oops, I didn't link the video I was trying to play. Hold on, guys. I gotta go back to my history real quick, because that is the one video I didn't hold on to. So give me 1 sec. I'm gonna pull that video up here. I'm gonna get right into it. I hope everyone's having a great week. I hope you guys are having a productive week. Things are going interesting in the world. So definitely, stay on your square. Stay focused on your own stuff. Stay focused on your finances and things like that. All right. All right. Give me 1 second, guys. Where did they go? Oh, okay. It's called The Disappearance by Christine Emba. And I think she did such a great job of having this conversation without male bashing, right? Because I think that's the problem. A lot of times people think that when we talk about subjects like this, that actually I do recognize you. I forget what your name used to be on here, because now it just shows the handles. Was it Roy Sam? It was Roy Sam, I think. You guys think I can't tell because you changed it. Like now it shows just your links. But a lot of times when women try to have this conversation about how men and the role of men have changed, there's a lot of gaslighting. There's you're trying to bash men, you're trying to embarrass men, you try to make men seem like they're not whatever, like you're trying to emasculate men, and that's really not what's trying to happen. I think a lot of the times when people are trying to have this conversation, they're trying to talk about how the dating world has changed, how the role and the way that men and women show up into relationships has truly changed. I think that's what we're really trying to say here, but it becomes interpreted in whatever way a person wants to interpret it, whether that's the real true intention or not. So let us get into this video here. Let me see if I can do this. I don't like the way this is looking like this. And we'll do this. But do me a favor, guys. Hit the like button and just let me know that you can hear everything clearly. It should be clear. But we're going to get into Christine's video because I think she did a really eloquent job of touching this subject. All right, let's get into it.
When we do talk about masculinity, we're often talking about it in negative terms. In some circles, phrases like men are trash or men are garbage have become de rigueur. I think the word that people most associate with masculinity right now is the word toxic, which doesn't really bode well for the whole thing. So it's hard to be convincing when you say men are in trouble. After all, look around us. All 45 US presidents have been men, and probably the next president will be one too. If you look at the S&P 500 a few years ago, there are actually more CEOs named Michael or James than there are women CEOs, period. But that said, most men aren't CEOs and most men aren't president of the United States. It's easy to focus in on a certain set of men that are doing well.
And what she's talking about, right, in the term that people don't like to hear, is she's talking about that most men, the average man, is not a CEO, is not leading a company, is not making six figures, is not a truly high earner. And that's not to degrade men. That's just to show that the expectations and the understanding of relationships has to shift, right? Because it used to be a lot different. I'm not saying that all men were rich before, right? But a simple man's salary used to be something different, right? And I think what the real truth is that most men, the average man, is not gonna check off any exceptional boxes, right? They're gonna be average, right? And so when we have conversations about exceptional men and talk about how men should provide and protect, which I'm not saying they shouldn't, right? But let's be realistic, right? And I'm not saying any one person should look for different. But the fact of the matter is, we're not living in an environment where it's particularly easy for a man to protect, provide, and do all of that off one singular income, right? Or even living in one particular way. All right, let's continue.
And realize that the majority of men are not hanging on so well. I'm Christine Emba. I'm an author and a journalist, and my latest book is Rethinking Sex, a Provocation. So, what are the trends that have led men to struggle in this moment? I think that there are three key areas where we can clearly see that men are struggling, perhaps even, yes, in crisis. Our labor market has changed over the past several decades due to globalization and deindustrialization. We have now moved towards a more credentialed favoring economy where things like brute strength aren't as valued as they used to be. Some of the jobs and areas that used to be fairly male-coded, male-centric, safe areas for men to work, the industrial sector, etc., are now kind of gone. And many of the men who used to be in those spaces are no longer there. We're seeing a drop in employment in men, especially young men. In fact, men ages 25 to 34 are among the groups that have dropped out most from the labor market, which is surprising because these are prime working age men. Then we're seeing issues in education. Obviously, Title IX was a good thing and it allowed many more
Now,
women in.
let us go back a minute, right? Because when women say, and again, not trying to gaslight here, but when women say, "Oh, these men are dusty. They don't want to work. They don't want to do this, that, the third," this is a data-based statistic saying specifically that men of a certain age group don't want to work. They're working the least, the least. They've dropped out the most, right? So let us go right back to that because that's a specific age group. Now I got siblings younger than that, and I can tell you just based off of an individualized anecdotal survey that that's true. Anecdotally, I know more men between 25 and 34 who aren't working than younger and then older. All of my older siblings are older than 34 at this point. So anecdotally, I can see that, right? This is something a lot of women can see, especially if you're 30. Like, let's say you're 30 years old. I know a lot of men in their 30s who don't have anything going on. They don't have a plan. They don't have a career path. Maybe they're just now jumping into a career. And I'm not saying this like in terms of, oh, these are the men that I'm trying to date. No, I'm saying like if I look around in my field, right? Most of the men at or above my education level look a certain way, right? And then if I look around and survey the rest of the group, those some of them have a particular look, and have a particular subset of education. And it's just the facts. Like it's just factually what's happening, right? If you ask a man that's 31 what's he's doing, a lot of the times it's going to be just like working a menial job, right? Oh, I got an apartment, I got roommates, I got bills, like that's what you hear a lot of the times. And I don't know if that's a generation thing where like the young kids are getting it how they live, right? They're finding multiple streams of income, right? The older people are already kind of built in that work ethic where they have jobs, they have careers, maybe they've already accomplished some education, right? And then there's like kind of late millennials, early Gen Zs, essentially, that are just struggling. Like struggling, not really accomplishing much, and really not showing up in the way that they should be right now for their age group, right? Because they mentioned that those ages are like prime working ages. That used to be when men would start earning the most money and get the most experience. Around that time is when they were building, their reputation, their work experience, and things like that. And to say that that's the group right now that's not earning, that's not getting education, it's kind of sad.
Are among the groups that have dropped out the most from the labor market, which is surprising because these are prime working age men. Then we're seeing issues in education. Obviously, Title IX was a good thing and it allowed many more women into the educational sphere. But now you're seeing a sort of flip from men earning most of the college degrees to women doing the same. There was a huge decline in college enrollment during the pandemic, and looking back at the numbers, 70% of the dropouts are men. And then you get to the domestic sphere.
So, we've talked about it, right? The labor force, largest dropout, right? Largest drop is from men 25 to 34, which is considered prime working ages, right? We already understand and know that women are out earning in terms of degrees most men, right? Women are getting the higher degrees. Women are actually going further. Women are the ones more highly enrolled in all that, right? This is what we can see that more on the outside. But when you see it, this picture painted side by side, decrease in labor, decrease in education, and then we get to the domestic life, it literally is a trickle down effect. Like it truly is. You're not working. You're not getting the education. Certainly relationships aren't going to go well. But what solution are men choosing instead of to evolve and to, better themselves? I don't know. Let me say hello to some people who've jumped back in the chat. We have April Carter. We have Miss Joanne Jenkins. Someone tagged Empress Kia, but I don't see her here. I wonder if I have to go into YouTube to see everyone's comments. That's been happening the last couple of days. Hey, Empress Kia, how are you? Okay, see, I can see this comment. Is this your first comment? Because YouTube is being so weird with me. Like, very strange. It's been a while since I've been live. Oh, okay. You sent a floating heart. Thank you so much, Empress Kia. I appreciate that. Yeah, men are definitely checking out. Rodney, I think a lot of them feel like there's nothing left for them. I think a lot of them feel like what men are telling them online, and we're going to get into what men are telling them, because men are saying a lot of crazy, nonsensical things to them as well. That's part of the issue. But I think, a lot of men are checking out because they really just don't understand what else to put their energy in. People are telling them relationships are not worth it. They're telling them education's not worth it. It's full of debt. Don't go to a job and let that job take advantage of you. Basically, every piece of information that they're receiving from older generations and people who are still working, who are in the thick of it, is the worst possible advice they can get. The worst. And I feel like some of them are just overstimulated, checking out. Some of them are like, ooh, that's way too much work. First of all, thank you so much for being a member for 5 months. I see that you rejoined 5 months ago. So thank you so much, J Prince for President, for being a member. If there's any way that you can contribute to my lifestyle, Paying for the membership is one way that's very much appreciated. So thank you so much. Now, in terms of emailing me papers, why don't you shove the papers up your ass? I've told you several times that those papers need to go to the court, not me. But thank you for the membership, nonetheless. Rodney says that's why this alpha believes in hard work and dedication. Now, why do you consider that the alpha? Because I think these alpha, beta, sigma, delta, kappa conversations are what is confusing men. Like telling men, oh, alphas do this. Oh, you're a delta if you do that. Like, you're a sigma. You're a sigma. Like, all of these weird things that we're assigning men, and I think that's what the problem is here, so. You don't have to time out Rodney. You can time out Jay Prince though. Um, I think he's just kind of saying, and I don't have a problem with people calling themselves alpha. I just think like that's part of the issue is labeling themselves alpha instead of just saying I'm a man, right? But I feel like even that label has come from the online sphere. You need to tell the court that you sent them to me. That's all you have to do, idiot. That's all you have to do. I don't know why you keep coming in here trying to talk. Like trying to have a conversation, trying to post videos talking about Flora. Let's see if Flora really want to. You live in a no-fault divorce state. All you got to do is file, prove that you sent me the papers, and they will start rolling. It will start rolling. I don't understand why you're coming here. Empress Kia says hovering is wild. Yeah, I mean he's been hovering for a year. Like at this point, there's only one solution to how to deal with this idiot. So unfortunately, it seems like I'm gonna be left with that final choice. But it's like, why are you here? Like, just say you want to watch the show. We're talking about you. We're talking about men like you, right? The ones who are already tapped in the head and are not suitable mates. So if you want to come and watch, just watch. But to be here like acting like you need me to do something is crazy. I go out and make that I earn it. I make calls, show up, and collect, and taught my children the same. My daughter is alpha. Oh, your daughter is alpha? I thought this was you right here, isn't it? Okay. Anyways, but yeah, I think that alpha can be a mentality that both, right? A lot of people say, oh, there's an alpha female. Alpha females, they have their own will. They live the life that they want. But I don't think like even assigning, what is it, Greek letters to people's personality traits or, their ability to go out and get what they want. I think that's part of the problem too. Like maybe you're just a go-getter and you taught your daughter to be a go-getter too. Right? Using that terminology has come from the online spaces. But all right, let's continue.
In men, especially young men. In fact, men ages 25 to 34 are among the groups that have dropped out the most from the labor market, which is surprising because these are prime working age men. Then we're seeing issues in education. Obviously, Title IX was a good thing and it allowed many more women into the educational sphere. But now you're seeing a sort of flip from men earning most of the college degrees to women doing the same. There's a huge decline in college enrollment during the pandemic, and looking back at the numbers, 70% of the dropouts are men. And then you get to the domestic sphere. Stagnating wages, labor market participation, and falling educational rates have downstream effects in domestic life. 34% of young women approximately say that they're single. Nearly 63% of young men say that they are. More women than men say that they're finding trouble finding a partner, so men, who live up to their standards. You also see a little bit of destabilization in traditional roles in relationships. When you think of kind of traditional relational arrangements where there's one higher earner and one lower earner, that perspective has also shifted over time too. Almost 50% of women say that they earn as much as or more than their partner, which is a huge shift from just a few decades ago. This isn't
So she's making a good point there, right, about these earner arrangements in opposite sex marriage, right? So in the earlier years, it looks like the men are earning way more, right? The percentage of women who earn more in their relationship was much smaller, 15% in 1972, up to 45% in 2022 is a pretty big jump, right? It shows obviously women are getting more educated. They're getting more of those credentials that you would say that earn you more money, right? If we're living in a credential society where you need credentials to earn higher wages, right? Then this would explain why the people who are staying and earning those credentials are going to make more money, right? But this is a big shift here. It's a shift we don't talk about, right? It's easy to get online and talk about Dusties, but it's not easy to talk about how these earning arrangements have completely shifted, right? So this means that we've shifted from the men are the ones making majority of the money and the woman's just coming in and contributing some to like we're basically at 50-50, right? Half of women, almost half of women are earning more than their spouse or more or as much compared to 15% in 1972, right? 15%. That's a big jump. That's a big change. And I think we never talk about this. It's easy to like just point to the after effects, but I don't think we really acknowledge what this has done to the gender roles, to society, and how things have changed. Thank you so much, Lana Love, for the floating heart. And thank you for joining the show today. I hope you're having a great afternoon. I'm over here all sore. Um, Working since 6 years old. Yeah, I mean that's a different generation, even, right? A generation where like needing to work and earn your keep was a thing, right? Where now you have the you know the the creme de la creme of working men not working, or working age men not working. Things have truly shifted. So hey, Lana Love. Rodney says, my children are in their 30s, and when it is sent them to college, they told us they could never afford to buy a home. They would never get married and absolutely would never have children. Yeah, it's kind of sad, Rodney. But unfortunately, if you look at the landscape of how things are, it's not designed for people to have families and children anymore. It is so like childcare was never $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month for a good one, $3,000 a month. That never used to be a thing, but we've kind of come to a place where creating families, having children is something that's like de-incentivized. There's really no incentives to go out and reproduce because you know that there's going to be a heavy burden, right? Maybe you guys can't afford for one of you to stay home, but also at the same time you can't afford wild amount of childcare, right? It becomes an issue where you got to choose quality of life, and I think that's what was making this is what's making a lot of people not want to have children, because who wants to introduce someone to poverty if they don't need to, right? But we're coming to a place in society where it's going to be rich and poor, and there's going to be nobody else. There's going to be no in between. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the decisions we've made politically in the last couple of years is what has brought us here. Even Joe Biden was a part of the problem. Getting a person to be one of the worst Democratic presidents as well, that's part of the problem too. Because now you have one side who doesn't trust the other side, and they're making rash decisions at the polls. All right, but these are conversations we're not having as deeply. Let's continue.
Which is a huge shift from just a few decades ago. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, in the same way that women overachieving in education is definitely not a bad thing. But they have provided a sense of destabilization, perhaps a feeling the world isn't exactly as it used to be, and men are struggling to find what their place is in the new arrangement. So I also think about the number of men who seem like they've just disappeared from society. These are men who are known as in the sort of wonky parlance, not in education, employment, or training. So what are they up to? Well, it seems like they're on the internet. Many of them are at home, sort of pouring out their woes to these online forums, whether it's incel forums or men going their own way discussion groups, where they talk about how dissatisfied they are with life and how it feels like the world has wronged them. Then you're seeing a lot of men playing video games, frankly, instead of engaging with the world. And that's actually compelling in understandable ways. It does seem like gaming gives you the opportunity to achieve goals or achieve success in a way that might not be as visible in the real world if you aren't able to find fulfilling employment or if you feel like you're left out of other societal pursuits. You also see men following what I term manfluencers. People like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, and Joe Rogan, who I think are sort of stoking their sadness and fears while telling them that the world is what's done them wrong. And the thing is, I can't say that they're all bad. In fact, there is some good there, perhaps much good. When I talk to young men especially about what Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan give them, one of the first things that they actually cite is just empathy. These men actually do seem to feel for the struggles that young men and other men are facing, and they're really straightforward about that. And then they also try and provide solutions. So Jordan Peterson famously says,
clean up your room.
And while that sounds like pretty basic and straightforward.
Yeah, and for black men, we know who that was, right? That was Kevin Samuels, right? Wash your bum, clean yourself. He tried to tell them, wash your bum, clean yourself, lose some weight, eat well, get dressed nice, smell good, take a shower. Right? He tried to push a lot of that. But I think what a lot of men held on to was the negativity, right? The negativity they felt that was never affirmed by anyone else. Right? Maybe most people told them, hey, your opinions on women are a little exaggerated, right? Maybe they've never heard anybody affirm that until they got on the internet. And that's part of the issue too. They're creating these spaces where, these mindsets are kind of festering. I found that just by hanging out with peers that have no ambition or have victim mentalities, many became my worst enemies trying to raise them. They literally were my competition. Sad. Yeah, and that's the thing. When you're hanging around low vibrating people who don't have ambitions or anything, this is an issue. They're never going to pull you up. They're going to keep pulling you down to where they are, right? Because they're going to look at you. They're like, you're up. Because all they're seeing is bad. All they're seeing is negativity. Yeah, Kitten Heels was a dusty. He was a non-select bandit. But he did start off with trying to tell men, like, hey, go take a shower, wash your butt, be better. But which part of Kevin Samuels did they like? They liked the kind of Kevin Samuels that told them, you don't qualify for a six-figure man. Settle for that loser. Settle for that bum. You know what I mean? Like, that's the conversations that people preferred from Kevin Samuels when he was ripping women apart. They didn't like Kevin Samuels that, told men to be better when he was sitting in his car telling men to be better. So, all right, let's continue.
Advice, to me, in fact, it seems like something that your dad or grandfather should have told you. It speaks to men who don't have that father figure or that male mentor in their life who can tell them what to do.
We just did 25 minutes at 196 degrees. I got a new sauna.
And not just a script for the basics. Many of these manfluencers provide a script for how to live, whether it's a particular all-meat diet or a way of working out that will transform them into some kind of better man. And then they also talk about masculinity with a sort of specificity that makes it feel aspirational. Many of them describe the process of manhood as a challenge, as a summit that the aspiring young man can surmount, while these guys are basically cheering them on. And that's appealing to men who have heard masculinity or manhood denigrated, or who aren't sure what direction to turn.
But if I could do it, trust me when I tell you, you could do it. Anybody can become a king.
So there is definitely a positive influence that many of these influencers have had. If only that they're, telling young men, hey, don't just sit on the couch. Maybe go out and talk to girls if you want a girlfriend. Maybe make your bed and find a job, get good at a skill. But there is a downside, and it's a major one. One of the things that's notable about a lot of these influencers is that they often discuss masculinity or an ideal manhood in opposition to femaleness.
Men and women are different. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
And in fact, they often spend a lot of time talking about how feminism or feminists or female agency is what's actually bringing men down.
What exactly is going on with women's studies that you believe is fostering revolution?
Well, you go on their websites and read what they say.
Sometimes the worst of these influencers take this rhetoric to action.
Turn and whack, and I smack her.
So you have a figure like Andrew Tate, who's constantly talking about, choking women, hitting women, dominating women. And more recently has been arrested in Romania for actual sex trafficking. So some of this advice curdles from empathy to outright misogyny. So while I think that men are worried about their place and are struggling, there has to be a different solution for them moving forward. If we actually want to help men who are in crisis, we have to come up with a positive vision of masculinity. One that is aspirational, not denigrating. And I think a positive vision of masculinity has to be one that is specific, one that actually speaks to men, that doesn't say, well, men, to be non-toxic, you need to be more like women. But actually, what does it mean to be a man specifically? How is that good, and how can you be better? So what does a positive vision of masculinity actually look like? When I asked men themselves, young men, older men, people I interviewed, there were a few things that came up often. Strength was discussed, not necessarily physical strength, but strength of some kind. Self-mastery, leadership, responsibility, and care for others. There were discussions about being led by physicality, whether being sort of inspired to great acts by sexual urges or otherwise. But the thing is, I think that many of these traits are actually scaffolded in some ways by biology. Sex drive and
And the things that I love about her commentary, thank you so much, Thelonious, for these super chat. He said, or he or she says, listening from work, much love. Thank you so much. I appreciate your donation to the channel. I appreciate you. One thing I love about her conversation and how she's talking about this is that this is the issue. Men have been presented with these terrible, negative talking points, these negative perceptions about relationships and marriage and finding a mate and falling in love, right? But we need a better solution. Telling men avoid relationships, avoid love, femininity is the devil, women having choice and misogyny is what we need, we don't need. You know what I mean? Like, all of that is a negative part of manhood that needs to be removed. And so I love that she's introducing a solution here. Now, my first solution, aside from all this stuff that she's talking about in terms of different discussions, would be, strength, right? Getting some type of skill, becoming an expert in something, right? I think like even carpentry, like working with your hands and doing things like that, all of that are things that I think should never lose their value in our society. But I think, again, we don't have a lot of men pushing those things anymore. Where they're not showing and mentoring men and saying, here, this is a lifelong thing that you can do. This is a way that you can feed and support your family. This is something that you can do if you want to be a man that has something. Oh, okay, so I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure because sometimes the names I can't tell, and then they'll be like, I'm a woman, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry for assuming that you were a man. So my bad. But thank you so much for the super chat. I greatly appreciate you. I think this is a big part of it. Teaching men that they can be something outside of an alpha. That they don't have to present like men from 60 years ago. You don't have to be a alpha, kappa, beta, sigma, delta, omega. Like, just be a man. Find what manhood is and teach men to find that. And I think the issue is there's these definitions being put out there. Oh, alphas, they don't smile at women. They don't say hello. They don't ask them if they want to be trafficked, like Andrew Tate, right? It's a lot of negativity that's being spewed for men in terms of like what they're supposed to believe and what they're supposed to be aspiring to. And I think men can speak for this better than anybody else. And I love that she's putting the conversation back in men's hands. Thank you for the support. All right, let's get back into this here. There's only a few minutes left in this video, and then I want to pivot the conversation a little bit, right? Because now we've seen a lot of data-driven reasons why things are different, right? I don't think when we go into these red pill and these manosphere spaces, I don't think men are talking about this. I think they're basically blaming everything on women and saying, well, you can't support your family because women decided to go to work and women decided to get education and women decided to put themselves on the same level of men. I think what men are being told about what the differences are is very inaccurate. And I think this was a very accurate way of describing it to men. All right, let's continue.
Some kind. Self-mastery, leadership, responsibility, and care for others. There were discussions about being led by physicality, whether being sort of inspired to great acts by sexual urges or otherwise. But the thing is, I think that many of these traits are actually scaffolded in some ways by biology. Sex drive and assertiveness are both associated with testosterone, the male sex hormone. And I think the key is that you have to channel these traits to be pro-social. Positive masculinity means using traits that feel distinctive to men for the good of others and for the good of society as a whole. When we talk about manhood or manliness or masculinity, we often discuss certain traits, whether it's strength or risk-taking or bravery or something like that. And I think there's a fear that by ascribing certain traits to masculinity, we might be saying that those traits can't be applied to women too. If we say that good men are strong, does that mean that women have to be weak? If we say that men are leaders, does that mean that women have to be followers? I think we're afraid of boxing both sexes in. The thing is, this isn't a zero-sum game. The sexes rise and fall together. As a person who loves and cares about men in my family, my friends, people I want to be romantic partners, I actually do want them to survive and flourish. And if we want a broader society to survive and flourish too, both sexes have to be doing well.
That's so true. Like, again, I'm talking specifically to people who do gender banging, right? At the end of the day, both sexes do have to get along and sort of do well in some ways if we want to see a really good society, if we want to see a good environment. All right, like it's not a one-sided thing. Now let's hear from the men's. Now I'm gonna share and hear a video, and I also want to give a disclaimer. Right, this video doesn't have a lot of views, right, but it's definitely an emerging channel. I have. Excuse me. I have seen this more in my algorithm. I've been seeing more channels like this popping up. So right now they're still kind of building their following, their base. But a lot of these topics and conversations about relationships are happening now, and about women that are leading people astray. One of them is here where a man kind of uses an AI bot to manipulate Jungian psychology, to basically affirm the belief that men aren't meant to be married or in relationships because it's and etc. etc. Anyways, like a caged bird or something. So let's get into this video. Keep in mind it is AI generated, but I think the opinions come from the man who created this video. Now I want to read the bio for you guys too, really quick, just so you guys know I'm not bull crapping in here, right? So why should never get married if you're a man? Carl Jung. All right, and why do so many men regret getting married? What did Carl Jung really say about relationships, masculinity, and losing your identity in love? In this powerful first person documentary, we explore the psychological reasons why some men choose not to marry through the lens of Jungian psychology, the anima projection, and the hidden dangers of unconscious commitment. Based on the teachings of Jung, this video dives into why modern men, here are the key words right here, why modern men feel trapped by traditional relationships, the anima and how it warps love into illusion, what psychic death means in marriage, and how to reclaim your identity before losing it. I don't know where anybody is telling people that women are the ones who are telling men to lose their identity in relationships. Those are actually talking points that women have, right? That they're being told to lose their identity and their individuality in relationships. But let's get into what this individual is saying in this video, right? Do me a favor, guys, if you can, hit the like, share, subscribe, pass along the video, leave a comment. All of that will help today. All right, let's get into it.
In my pocket, the table was reserved, and I had practiced the words 100 times. But I didn't do it. I walked past her favorite cafe that day without going in. Not because I didn't love her, but because something deep inside me whispered, "This isn't freedom, it's surrender." That voice would haunt me for years. It wasn't fear. It wasn't trauma. It was something older. Something I would only begin to understand after I discovered Carl Jung's forgotten warnings about the male psyche. But I'm getting ahead of myself. At 29, I thought I had it all figured out. A steady job, a beautiful partner, and a future that looked perfect on paper. My friends called it settling down. My parents called it growing up. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a man building a life. I saw someone burying himself under expectations. It started small. About a question about quiet compromise I didn't realize I'd made. Questions grew louder and stranger. Was I living my life or someone else's dream? I tried to silence those questions with logic.
Now, let me say something. If you are feeling this way in your relationship, if you feel like you're agreeing to things that you never really and you're accepting things about a partner and you're not speaking up, that's on you. There's nothing Jungian about that. That's not psychology. That's not Jungian psychology telling you that you should run away from a relationship. That's you not having the balls to be honest with the person that you're with, not taking self exploration seriously, and really not giving the proper value to your relationship. Because if you're with somebody that you said, oh, you felt like you had it all until somebody basically told you you're doing the right thing, and there's something wrong with you, right? Maybe you have been doing what people want you to do instead of what you want to do. And you need to be honest about that. I don't believe that anybody should sacrifice their own wants and needs to do what society wants them to do. I don't believe so. So if you're feeling that way, what choices have you made in your life that makes you think that? Right? Who do you believe has put you in that position? Have you put yourself in that position? Have you bought into what the world tells you you're supposed to like, and now you're projecting that onto people who want to be with you, who care about you? Right? I think a lot of times when we can't process things, especially when we're emotionally immature, and I'm not saying this to be degrading, but I think especially when we're emotionally immature, where we don't know ourselves yet, we don't know what we want, that it's easy to come into relationships and just kind of be on autopilot and then be like, this is not what I want. This is what the world is telling me what I want. This is what my parents are telling me what I want. I'm doing what my partner wants me to do. I'm in chains. I'm in prison. I think that's somebody who doesn't know themselves. Because I know myself. If somebody starts presenting a way that I don't want, that's me. I'm a runner. I'm a track star. I will leave. Like, I'll leave faster than the speed of light. And so I think I think just people don't know themselves, and I think people are making decisions based off of what they think they're supposed to do in society. Maybe at 29 years old with a beautiful partner, a career, a this and a that, he felt like he'd done everything society told him to do. Why are you doing what society tells you to do? Do what you want to do. If you buy into what society wants for you and you love that, then I love that for you. But you should not be doing anything because you believe that that's the right thing to do as a young man or as a young woman or as a black person or as a black woman, as a black man. Like, do what's right for you. Don't make decisions based off of the greater or the larger society. Right? That would be my first advice. But it sounds like this man has been living life passively, and now he's resenting it.
Marriage is normal. Marriage is love. Marriage is what people do when they're serious. But logic couldn't quiet the unease. I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I felt like I was being led into something blindfolded. I started researching psychology, trying to fix whatever was broken in me. That's when I stumbled across a quote misattributed to Carl Jung. Never get married if you are a man. It stopped me cold. Not because it was true, but because I feared it might be. What if marriage for men was more than a ritual? What if it was a psychological trap one Jung had actually warned about in different words? I started reading his work obsessively. The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Psychological Types. That's when I found something chilling. It wasn't a single
And I think he was searching for something that affirmed his belief.
sentence. It was a pattern. Jung never condemned marriage outright, but he saw something others didn't. The way men unconsciously project their unlived selves onto women, and how marriage often amplifies that projection. That projection, he said, was dangerous. It turns love into illusion, and illusion into resentment. Could that be what I was feeling? I kept going back to one of Jung's most haunting ideas, the concept of the anima. He said every man carries within him a hidden feminine image, not a real woman, but an unconscious ideal, shaped by childhood, fantasy, and myth. And here's the terrifying part: when a man falls in love, he often believes he's found her. But in truth, he's found his own projection, a mirror of his anima, not her, not the woman standing in front of him. That realization shook me. What if I was never...
So, and here's the thing, right? A lot of times people talk about how genders embody masculine and feminine, right? There's even words that are masculine and feminine, right? We understand that some words have both sides. And I think we've come to a place where what is described as man and manhood is so toxic that men can't fathom having feminine energy without believing something bad about themselves or believing that it's negative, right? They've associated femininity with weakness, with negativity, even though femininity is what births them. I think that's the craziest part to me, is that you can slide out of a vagina but also degrade that same thing for being what it is. You know what I mean? I think that's a main issue that men are having, is they don't understand that they have a feminine side. You as a man have a feminine side, and there's nothing wrong with that. As a woman, I have a masculine side, and it displays as all the things that are masculine, right? Testosterone is responsible for assertiveness. So when I'm being assertive, right, that's me tapping into my masculine side. Does it mean that I'm being a man? No, I'm not a man. Biologically, I'm a woman, right? But in order for me to be assertive, I'm going to have to tap into my masculine. It doesn't make me a transgender. It doesn't make me whatever, you know what I'm saying, just because I have to tap into that. Just like men, when they raise daughters, they have to tap into their feminine, right? You have to be delicate. That little girl, that little daughter that you're raising is delicate. You have to treat her like a little delicate angel, right? Men have to tap into their feminine too. And I think the men who struggle the most are the ones who don't understand the duality of humanity. As a man, you're going to be feminine in some ways. right? And I don't necessarily agree that when men fall in love is them falling in love with their projection of femininity. I don't know about that. Maybe I think men project their feminine side onto what they want to see out of a woman. Maybe. Please explain to me anxiety example of my feminine side. Rodney, do you have daughters? Men who do their daughter's hair. For you to do your daughter's hair, you have to tap into your feminine. Yes, boys have hair too, but to do your daughter's hair and for your daughter to actually like your hair and feel confident, you're gonna have to tap into your feminine. You have to make her cutesy. Your feminine side is cooking, nurturing, anything that is natural to the feminine, right? They say nurturing is natural to the feminine, right? So maybe when you nurturing your child is you tapping into your feminine. Does that mean that you're gay or transgender or weird or anything? No, that is your duality as a human being. You have a feminine side. The difference is whatever sex hormone that you have, it dominates. So you're mainly going to have masculine energy. But if you are a woman, you have masculine energy as well. If you are a man, you have feminine energy as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or having a tea party with your daughter. Yes. I've seen that. I've seen men allow their daughters to paint their nails, to use their hair as a hair salon. Right? There's a lot of those ways that you're not necessarily teaching your daughter, oh, I'm transgender. You're teaching her, hey, I'm confident enough in who I am as a man that, yeah, I'll play pretend with you. Right? You're teaching her that you have comfort in your own gender as well, too, because you're not turning that into something else. That's just how you have to do it. That's how you have to tap in. I am loving the colors of my rain machine with the candles. Of course, I did all of that in her makeup too. I had to teach her how to do her hair because we have the same hair. I did all of that. I talked to her 3 times today. Yeah, because that's how it is, right? As a man, you're gonna have to. If you're raising a little girl, you're gonna have to teach her how to do her hair. You're gonna have to teach her how to take care of herself and look put together. And that's not you being feminine. That's you tapping into the feminine side that exists within you. Humans are dual. We possess duality. We have multiple things going on at multiple times, and there's nothing wrong with that. All right, let's continue.
In love with her, but with the reflection of myself I wanted to see. And what happens, Jung asked, when that projection fades, when reality intrudes? The answer isn't romantic. It's violent, emotional, and often irreversible. Many men, Jung wrote, blame the woman for changing, but she didn't change. The projection collapsed, and what's left is a stranger. Or worse, someone we resent for not being who we thought they were. That explains so much of what I'd seen growing up. Men who once adored their wives, now dull-eyed and bitter, trapped in a life they no longer recognized. I started noticing it in conversations with married friends. They spoke of love like a duty. Their eyes flickered when they mentioned freedom like it was something they had once tasted but no longer believed in. And the worst part? They didn't even know what they traded it for. They couldn't name it. They just said things like, that's life.
See, this is my thing. You're clearly talking to miserable people with poor marriages. That's who you're talking. If that's how they're describing relationships for you, they have poor relationships, poor marriages. And listen, you have to be mindful who you're getting your advice from. So when some of these random people get online and start asking people for advice that they don't know what their background is, they don't know what their results are, it's crazy to me. You know, someone in the chat said, hey, I need some relationship advice. Can anyone help me? No, go to a therapist. Seek therapy. Seek somebody who's qualified to give you good advice on how to keep and maintain a relationship. Listen. And that's a helpful skill that she needs. That's something that she can use, that she can help herself with property in the future. You know, she wants to upgrade a bathroom and flip a property. That's skills that you're giving her that are lifelong. Carl Jung is a very famous psychologist. So what he's trying to do here, this YouTuber, is he's trying to use um, the theories and things of psychologists out of context. So that's why he said without saying, or if you read between the lines, because Carl Jung never came out and said marriage is bad, don't seek it, don't seek relationships, don't seek family, don't like he never said that. But I think he was trying to imply certain things based on everything they said. Go become a social worker and get paid. They certainly do get paid, sometimes, not always though. All right, let's continue.
Or, it's complicated. And yet, beneath those words, I sensed the same quiet ache I felt in myself, a kind of spiritual claustrophobia. One night, I asked myself the question directly. If I marry her, will I still be me? The silence that followed was unbearable. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I did. Something in me would be lost. Not taken by her, not stolen, but given away, willingly. That's the part no one talks about. How much of ourselves we hand over without even knowing we're doing it. And once it's gone, can you ever get it back? I wasn't just afraid of marriage. I was afraid of disappearing, of waking up one day in a quiet house with a woman I once loved, children I might adore, and a version of myself I could no longer recognize. That fear wasn't about commitment. It was about erosion, the slow wearing down of instinct, adventure, and truth. I looked at older men in my family and saw it in their eyes. They had played the part well, providers, protectors, partners, but somewhere along the way, they'd stopped being something else themselves. Jung warned that the modern man faces a unique danger, losing his soul while keeping his job, his home, and his smile. He called it psychic death. It's not loud. It doesn't come with flames or collapse. It comes with routine, repetition, sacrifice, disguised as maturity. And for men who never face their conscience, who never met the shadow within, marriage often becomes the final nail. Not a sanctuary, but a tomb. That idea burrowed under my skin and stayed there. I started pulling away. From her, from the plans, from the future I once imagined so vividly. She noticed. Of course she did. She asked if something was wrong, and I lied. I said work was stressful. I said I just needed time. But the truth was darker. I didn't know how to tell her that I was losing a war inside myself, and she was unknowingly winning. That's the paradox Jung spoke of often. How we invite our own imprisonment and call it love. We mistake surrender for security. The hardest part? She was everything I thought I wanted. Kind, intelligent, beautiful in a way that made my chest tighten. And still I felt the walls closing in. That contradiction nearly broke me. How could I walk away from something so perfect? How could I live with myself if I stayed? I began to wonder if he faced this himself. And that's when I found something strange hidden deep in his biography. A truth that wasn't formal writings, a detail that changed everything. Because Jung did get married, and he lived like a man who wasn't bound by it. But how? Jung married Emma Rauschenbach in 1903, a brilliant woman from a wealthy Swiss family. She was loyal, sharp, and deeply spiritual. On the surface, their marriage looked ideal. 5 children, a beautiful home, public harmony. But beneath it, Jung was engaged in something radically different from the traditional role of a husband. He insisted on space, not physical distance, but psychic autonomy. Even in marriage, he preserved a life of deep inner solitude rituals, travel, study, and long walks into the forest alone. Emma accepted this, though it must have hurt. And in return, Jung gave her a kind of brutal honesty few men ever risk. That's when I realized. He didn't reject marriage. He rejected fusion. The idea that 2 people must merge completely to be whole. Jung didn't believe in that. In fact, he believed wholeness could only be found within. Not in another person, not in romance, and certainly not in the projection we cast on.
But it's interesting, right, how perception changes everything, right? I think what he's trying to say here is that Young didn't believe that, you should seek to find yourself in a relationship. And I don't think anyone really says that. I think we've kind of moved past the belief that, oh, you find yourself when you find love. No, I think the belief is that you have to be whole when you come into a relationship. You're only going to lead a healthy, successful relationship if you come whole. So I think what Young was talking about was people coming together whole, having their whole lives, their independent lives, their independent goals and wants in a relationship, and still maintaining that when they're in the relationship, not allowing for the relationship to be the death of their persona and who they are. Right, psychic death can happen to men and women, and I think it actually happens more to women, right? Because they get married and they dissolve into that relationship, right? That's what we see sometimes. But if you get married and you two build something up that's great, that's beautiful, that flourishes, right? And I would say that's a lot different. It's a lot different than when he's describing as psychic death. All right, let's continue.
To our lovers. That was the real danger, not marriage itself, but the belief that another human being could complete us. That's the myth we're sold. That's the illusion we chase. And that illusion is why so many marriages feel like slow deaths. Because instead of confronting the shadow, instead of facing the loneliness and the chaos within, we try to outsource our healing. We ask another person to carry the weight of our unlived life. But no one can do that, no matter how much they love us. So we resent them. We punish them for not being who we imagined. And eventually, we leave. Or worse, we stay and become ghosts. That's when it all clicked. I didn't have to run from love. I didn't have to fear marriage. What I had to fear was unconsciousness. The part of me that wanted to surrender responsibility for my soul and call it devotion. I almost walked into that trap smiling, and I still might have if Jung hadn't grabbed me by the collar through the pages and whispered, "Wake up." So I stayed. Not in the relationship, but in myself. And that's when the strangest thing happened. I didn't feel lost anymore. I didn't feel lost anymore. Not because I had all the answers, but because I finally understood the questions. I stopped asking whether marriage was right or wrong. I started asking, what part of me is choosing? Fear? Is it the conformity? Is it the anima whispering through the conscious? Or is it something deep that doesn't need to possess, fix, or save anyone? And that changed everything. I never proposed. I never sat at that candlelit table with the velvet box in my pocket. I let the moment pass like a tide I wasn't meant to swim in. She cried. I did too. And though I didn't say it then, what I felt was gratitude. Gratitude for her love, for what we shared, for what she reflected back to me, even if it wasn't truly her, but a piece of my own forgotten self. And as painful as it was, I knew I couldn't betray that clarity. Not again. Because in the end, the real marriage, the one Jung wrote about, the one no ceremony can sanctify, is the marriage between the conscious and the unconscious, the masculine and the feminine within. Until that union is made, no relationship will ever feel complete. We'll always be chasing phantoms, always blaming others for what we haven't resolved inside ourselves. I walk alone now, but not lonely. There's a silence in my life that used to terrify me, and now it feels like home. Sometimes I wonder what.
I'm not gonna hold you. That sounds so morbid. So morbid. So anyways, you guys want to check out that bandit, you sure can. I'm not gonna shout him out. Only got a few hundred views. But I think it's interesting to use Jungian theory to try to discount modern relationships. I thought that was a very interesting take. So if you guys do want to check that channel out, I will leave the link in my description box because I'm not a complete hater, but I'm not going to shout that channel out right now. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let's continue on here. right? Now, this is from Richard Reeves. He's going to get into the conversation about, is marriage dying, right? And so I think, as we talk about all these new concepts here where, women are making more, women are leading in education, women are leading in credentials, I think that it bears the question to say, are we aging out of a time where marriage was a thing, right? Are we in a time now where marriage is not a common concept, right? Most people are in monogamous relationships, sure, but marriages and more committed relationships, no. And so they'll talk a little bit about that here in this about 6-minute clip. This is by Richard Reeves, so don't take anything that's on here as my personal opinion, simply as material for us to dissect and converse about. All right, let's continue.
There's been a general decline in marriage, but behind that general decline is a more interesting story. I think it's important we try to understand why people do get married in the first place. For some people, of course, it's a religious matter. It's a covenantal relationship. I think for many more people, there's an economic element to it. There's obviously the companionship and love. You fall in love and want to spend the rest of your life with someone. So there's a romantic element to marriage. And another reason was because they got pregnant. The so-called shotgun wedding. There was a sense that if you were bringing a new life into the world, that should be done within marriage. And there's probably a bit of status signaling too, sometimes, and this may be more true today than it was in the past, that being married is a way of signaling success and status within a society. And so there's a blend of reasons between religion, romance, economics, and status that have traditionally led people to the marital state. The old model of marriage was, for the woman, it was an economic necessity, particularly if she was going to have children, to be with a man who would be the provider. And obviously that has hugely changed now. And for the man, it was a way to attach himself to children. If he was going to have children, he had to do that with a woman. She was going to raise the children. But if she was doing that, he had to provide for them too. And so there was this complementarity to that traditional view of marriage, which of course was founded on a very deep inequality between men and women. That was a driving force of the women's movement, including people like Gloria Steinem, saying the point is to make marriage into a choice rather than a necessity, and to actually free women from the economic bondage, as they would have put it, of marriage. And that inequality is what's been successfully shattered gladly by the women's movement.
All of us must stand up together and say no more.
The very institution of marriage, which is central to human societies, has been fundamentally transformed. It's one engaged into in very egalitarian principles. Women have huge exit power. I think it's important to know that women are twice as likely as men to file for divorce. So women are using exit power from marriage. They're not stuck in bad marriages anymore, which is a huge achievement for humanity. But for men, of course, the old role of, well, I'll just provide while you raise the kids, that's out of the window too. And so men's role in marriage and what it means to...
Yeah, and so the main issue that men are having today, let's be real, is the fact that men in marriages don't have the same value. Oh, I'll pay all the bills while I stay home and raise the kids is not a thing anymore. It might still be for some men who earn enough to survive in their cities or states, but it's not that big of a thing anymore. It's not common anymore. And so that's why you're seeing a huge decrease in the types of unions where, oh, you make less, I make more, I'll cover this, you cover that type of situation. And you're seeing more of like, okay, who has the most money? And let's work around that.
Be marriageable, to use a slightly ugly term from social science, is very different now for men from what it was in the past. And women are looking for something much more than just a paycheck. It's a bit like the kaleidoscope has been shaken and the patterns haven't quite settled yet. You see lesbian and gay couples being able to opt into marriage. Within a couple of years of the Supreme Court decision, we saw 3 out of 5 lesbian and gay couples choosing to get married. You see a big class gap opening up, fewer working class and lower income Americans opting into the institution. What we have is what my colleague Isabel Sawhill calls one of the main class fractures in American society. No one expected that it was Americans with the most choice and the most economic power, and especially the American women with the most choice and economic power, who would be the ones who were continuing to get married and stay married. There's a very slight decline for those, say, with 4-year college degrees, but a really big decline for those with less education. The typical college-educated American woman is almost as likely to get married as her mother was, and if anything, a little bit more likely to stay married than her mother was. So there really hasn't been much of a decline in marriage at all in the top ranks of American society. Meanwhile, significant declines lower down. One of the other big changes has been a significant shift up in the age of first marriage, up to closer to 30 now. And I think about my parents who married at 21, having met at 17, pretty common. And actually, as late as 1970, most women who went to college in the US, which was a minority, of course, but most of them were married within a year of graduating college. That's a world that's very difficult to fathom now, where both men and women are entering the labor market, they're becoming economically successful, they're establishing themselves. In some ways, you do all that first, then you marry. And so marriage has become more like the capstone. Increasingly, marriage is a signal of everything that has led up to the ceremony, rather than the beginning of a journey. It's as much the end of a journey to a position where people feel they can get married now. We can't tell a single story about marriage in America anymore in the way we could just 40 years ago. We have to tell different stories based on class and race and geography. We've seen this real divide opening up in marriage in the US. Americans now are much less likely to see marriage as something that you have to do to be a complete person or have a good life. Only 1 in 10 Americans now believe that it's essential to be married to have a fulfilling life. That's a huge cultural change. I think what we can safely say is that the model of marriage that was founded on economic dependency of women on men is completely obsolete. Now I think we've created models of the family that are much more equal and much fairer, but maybe not quite as stable in many cases too. And the challenge we all face is to find ways to create more stability.
More equal but not stable. That is so true, right? I think a lot of people struggle to cope with these new gender roles. Now, and when I say people, I'm talking about men and women, right? Maybe women are like, dang, we don't have that same cushion, right? We have to work, and so if we're gonna be with a man, he needs to check off all these boxes of emotionally safe, mentally well, emotionally mature, mentally healthy. There's a lot more boxes that you have to check now versus in the past. And I think it's interesting that this man is married.
In our family life, but without sacrificing the goal of equality, which has animated the movement of the last 50 years. I think what we should be looking to is, how do we have strong relationships within which people can raise kids well? And if marriage has a part to play in that, then great. But there are alternative models around civil partnerships and so on too. What matters is parenting. What matters is how we raise our kids. And I do think that it's quite possible to imagine a renewed future for marriage based around egalitarianism between men and women, but a shared commitment to kids. But I think that's for us to create. If marriage is to survive, it will be in a new model, not a restoration of the old model.
Yeah. And that's a problem with what some of these red pill channels are trying to do, is like, oh, we need to go back, we need to revert back to how things were, and we're past that. Literally, societally, we are past that. If we want to have a society where people are healthy and they're able to have and maintain relationships, we're going to have to get away from all of that. Is what it seems like. Right? We're going to have to go back to that point where we prioritize children over everything else. Right? What the children need, what the children want, how the children will succeed is above everything. Right? That's what we used to be at. Or at least what we say we used to be at. All right? So anyways, I'm going to move on to a different video. And this will probably be our last video here. We're going to talk about the hardest type. Well, there's 2 videos. This first one is going to be the hardest type of people that exist to break up with, right? So now that we've talked about relationships and how relationships are struggling, I think also part of what's going on is that the internet has created where people believe that they're entitled to your space, to your time, to your energy, to a response from you, all of it. Are we solely saying Red Pill and Manosphere created this? Yeah. And where I'll say yes is that I think that the Red Pill and the Manosphere created spaces for men to talk about their issues but not go to a productive solution. So telling men, oh, F these women, don't have kids, don't get married, don't be with them, invest in yourself, all of that comes from these manosphere and red pill spaces because even the ones who tell them MGTOW, right? They're telling them invest in yourself, get the best diet, eat the best food so that you can be your best self, not so that you can perform for women. So yeah, I'm gonna blame mostly those spaces. I wouldn't say entirely solely on those spaces, but I'll say most of them, Davey. So yeah, I can probably stand on most. All right. So let me move on to the next video here because we were just talking about one. Thank you so much, Davey, for becoming a member. Davey became a bandit capturer. Thank you so much for becoming a bandit capturer. I hope that in your time here in my channel, you're able to ascertain and capture all the bandits who are here, terrorizing the community, terrorizing women, creating bastards and single mothers, right? Definitely help them. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right. So that was the last video. Now we're gonna go into again the hardest person to break up with, and I wanted to include this one here because I don't think people realize how difficult it is being with somebody who does not have an honest bone in their body. So you're trying to move on, you're trying to prioritize yourself, but you find yourself being at the whim of somebody else, right? And you find yourself having to answer for, somebody else, whether they're dependable or not. Okay, so we're going to start off talking about the hardest person in the world to break up with from the School of Life. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, do me a favor and hit the like button. Thank you so much for those of you who become a member. Like, share, subscribe to the stream, support the channel. All of that is appreciated by me, okay? But let's get into this one.
This is a film about the hardest kind of person in the world to break up with. A relationship with them tends to begin like this. You're very drawn to them. Perhaps they very much attract you physically, and their personality is compelling as well. You admire them, and in areas feel a lot of sympathy for them too. There's probably something in their past which really interests and touches you. You have no desire to break up, and in fact, you'd love this to last until the end. For their part, they seem to be keen on you. That's what they've said on a number of occasions. They show no interest in leaving you. They want this to be for the long term, perhaps forever. And yet, there is a problem so grave and yet so hidden, so damaging and yet so hard to grasp, that you can only bear slowly to face up to it. You start to realize that the partner whom you love and who says they love you is having a grievously detrimental effect on your mental and physical well-being. What wrong might the partner be perpetrating? It can be a spectrum. At one end, they might be hitting you, but the spectrum is long and it contains all sorts of far more insidious ways in which, without ever raising a hand, let alone a finger, one human can badly damage another. They might be having affairs or spending too much money. They might be addicted to something. Or, and this is properly hard to get a grip on, they may be constantly absent. They may show no reliable warmth towards you. They may never initiate any touch. They may never even give you so much as a hug. They're present, but not really there. Probably, as soon as these problems first arose, you started to complain, but you did so softly, or sarcastically, or bitterly, not head-on. After all, you love them, and you're a good boy or girl. It can take a long time, years, decades, before you finally dare to find your voice and come to a place of being able to raise an adult objection. What then happens when you at last ask these types to face up to the harm you feel they're doing to you? There are two main responses. Both of them are appallingly hard to master, and probably the second is the very hardest. First, they confess it. Fed up at last, you tell them that you've had enough of the violence, affairs, addiction, financial spend, distance, lack of intimacy, lack of sex, and you raise an ultimatum. If they don't finally raise their game, you're going to be leaving, even though, of course, it's the last thing you really want. You love them. You may be shaking and flushed after you've spoken. You're feeling you might be crazy. After all, surely it's crazy to threaten to leave someone you love who says they love you. You'd expected all sorts of dark responses on their part, but something that is on the surface rather lovely now tends to happen. They admit it. They confess. They say, my goodness, you're right. I hadn't really fully realized until now, until you made me finally open my eyes to how I've harmed you. Baby, I hear you. Baby, I'm so sorry. The person promises that they will now change. They just need a bit of time. They just need your understanding. They suggest getting themselves a therapist once a month or so, and then they'll get on top of their issues. Their ready candor is deeply moving and suggests they really do have a handle on their psyches. You are, in any case, desperate to believe them. They have a very willing audience indeed. The problem is that despite their promises, the person doesn't change at all. They make a short-term adjustment, strong enough to ensure that you won't leave them on the timescale you were threatening, but not profound enough to correct the problem and allow you your freedom. And in the gap between their promise to change and your realization that they haven't got the ability, or perhaps intention to do so, children may have been born. They wanted kids to keep you around. You wanted them as a token of the happy future that was being promised. Commitments pile up, and there are fewer options left in the world beyond. You might not be so young anymore. Second possibility, they deny it. However hideous all the above sounds, there is an even worse kind of relationship to leave than that. And this is the one with the same dynamics, but with one extra twist at the end. When you finally confront them with the problem, they don't confess. They deny it. They tell you you're dreaming, you're imagining it. The problem lies with you, they say. At the same time, they get very incensed and offended at the suggestion you're making. You're so cynical about me. Don't you trust me? How rude you are about me. Why don't you have more faith in me and in us? And they push back. You're just as neurotic as you say I am. The problem's with you, not me. This is minefield territory. Relationships and their interactions are generally not recorded. So it's very hard for you to back up your claims or even be sure of your verdicts when they're relentlessly challenged. Is the loved one spending too much money? Or am I just nagging? Are they actually flirting? Or am I just jealous? Are they constantly failing to initiate sex? Or am I just insecure? The partner whom you love and really don't want to leave, and who says they love you, adds to the difficulty you face by enthusiastically telling you with authority that you really are a bit crazy, that you are seeing things, that you are too demanding, that there's something wrong with you. Probably you're an open-minded, nice, intelligent person, and open-minded, nice, intelligent people tend to give others the benefit of the doubt. After all, such types know they aren't perfect. They're aware of everything they get wrong. They don't feel they're brilliant in every way. Therefore, perhaps it's quite plausible that here too, you may be seeing things that aren't there. Why insist, especially when you love your partner and want to be with them? Here is a nice person telling you you're a bit mad and imagining things. It's a dispiriting message, but if disregarding your impulses and your emotional needs is the price you have to pay for keeping a relationship aloft, maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's worth thinking of yourself as a bit insane. At least you'll still have a partner. So, more time passes, and you stay put, and in that time, probably, there are more children, more entanglements, and less of life left for you to build on afterwards. There is also highly likely to be a destruction of your sense of reality. You'll probably start to feel as mad as you're being subtly told you are. You might have a breakdown, which isn't an ideal backdrop against which to leave anyone. All that said, in both of the above cases, eventually you will have to leave. Your long-term mental well-being depends on it. But it isn't a picnic, having to leave someone you love, who says they love you, and who's either falsely promising to change, or denying they need to change because you're the defective one to begin with. You will feel extremely alone with this decision. You will be left to wrestle either with feelings that you are nasty for leaving someone who is promising again and again to change, or that you are mad for leaving someone who tells you you're demented to doubt their sincerity. You will have to destroy a relationship that might have children in it on the basis of nothing more firm than an inner sense that your partner is doing something seriously deficient to your well-being and cannot stop themselves doing it despite telling you they love you. And yet, you will have to leave. In order to leave, you will need to think in your mind, I'm in love with someone who is damaged. They cannot realistically change and may even be using me as a reason not to change. Or they're in denial and are abusing my credulity and self-doubt in order not to look more honestly into themselves. And you will have to think, there is probably something in my past, a history of putting up with intolerable situations, which makes me a long-term sucker for this sort of suffering. Mountain climbers know that certain peaks can't be climbed on one's own. You need a climbing buddy, and in this context, let's call them a psychotherapist or a very, very good friend, the sort who can put in the time to reassure you of your sanity and who can be there for you at the inevitable moments when you'll feel like you're making the worst choice in the world, even though, despite your self-hating feelings that you're impatient or getting everything wrong, you are, in fact, in the process of taking the very best decision of your life.
Deciding whether to stay in or leave a relationship is one of the
So, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the content. Obviously I think being with somebody that doesn't have the same ambitions, somebody who's willing to manipulate you and treat you a certain way is a problem. You have to be willing to walk away from those situations. You have to be willing to say, no, this is not working. This is harmful. This is negative to me. Right? You have to be willing to say all of that. Lastly, I just want to end the note on this stream, on why narcissists get married. Because I think a lot of people see narcissistic people as egotistical, self-centered, and they just wonder, well, why would that person get married? And I think because there's a certain perception that people have about married people, right? It's a perception that we'll talk about. Victor says mountain climbing is white folks' activity. You won't have to worry about falling if you don't go up there. Wow. Only white people go up on mountains? That's crazy, Vic. That's crazy. But we're going to talk about that really quickly before I do send you guys off. So, if you enjoyed the stream so far, if you're enjoying the stream right now, do me a favor, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Support the channel in any way that you can, including becoming a member, sending a super chat, making a suggestion. All of that is important and it helps to grow the channel. All right, so we're going to get into this last clip here. It's only about 9 minutes long, but it talks about why narcissists, who again are very self-centered people, would pursue a marriage.
It's married, and this is the reason the narcissists are in long-term relationship. Everybody's always confused. If the narcissist is such a narcissist, how come some of them are married? Am I married to a narcissist because don't they just leave their supplies after a few months and leave? No. No. You're getting it all wrong. The narcissist, I'll tell you exactly why the narcissist can sustain a long relationship or even get married and stay married for a long, long time. I tell you guys this, just because someone is married, just because people are married for years, doesn't mean that they're actually married. Doesn't mean that their union is of God or is of an actual marriage, what a marriage is supposed to be, especially dealing with a narcissist. See, again, the narcissist wants to be seen as very, very important. The narcissist's public personality or persona or whatever, public perception of them is very, very important. The narcissist needs to have that beautiful wife. The narcissist wants people to know that they have the best jobs and they make good money. The narcissist wants to have those beautiful children, so they go out of their way to make those things happen. But usually when the narcissist gets that wife, when the narcissist gets that beautiful girlfriend, it is for them. It's not about the union. It's not about the love. It is for them. It is a reflection on them. And usually the reason these people stay married for a long, long, long time is because they found the best supply who's willing to put up with their nonsense. Some of these women and men are suffering in silence. Some of them are crippled by the narcissist. And how they get crippled by the narcissist is because maybe they're financially dependent on the narcissist. Maybe they have children by the narcissist. Maybe the narcissist successfully detached and isolated them from their family and friends, and now they're fully dependent on the narcissist. Again, maybe financially they don't have a way out. So many reasons. Maybe the narcissist has finally killed their self-esteem to where they cannot get up and go. They don't see themselves as human anymore. They don't see their lives without this person. The narcissist is a powerful manipulator. And if they successfully get a person to a place where the person is completely dependent on them, the person stays for fear of leaving, for fear of, wasting their time, for fear of so many different reasons. Some of them are afraid for their lives. The narcissist has literally told them that if they ever left, they would hurt them. So not everyone who's married to the narcissist is happy. Not everyone who's in a long-term relationship with a narcissist is truly married. And that's why you see a lot of married single women, a lot of married single mothers. I can guarantee you, if you were to really, really sit a married woman, a person who's truly married to a narcissist down and talk to them and get marriage advice, you will find that these people are miserable. These people are slaves to these narcissists. The narcissist has gotten them to a point where no one will even believe them if they try to tell someone what's really going on. The narcissist has gotten them to the place where they are completely dependent on them. So once the narcissist gets that victim, and unfortunately it does happen, some people figure the narcissist out, check them, leave them, and they're gone. Myself included. I was out when I found out who I was dealing with. I had worked too hard. I had broken so many generational curses in my family, being a first generation college graduate, being the first, person to make a milli in my family, being the first successful, at least at that level, person in my family. I was not going to let this loser ruin my youth, ruin my success, my education. I was not going to let that happen. My desire to get away was more than my desire to fall for that nonsense. So I left. Did I suffer after leaving? Better and better. Easily stayed and married this person. We were engaged. This person engaged me after 3 months. After 3 months together. He was in a rush to marry me because he knew my potential. He knew my power. He knew who I was and what I was capable of. At a young age, he knew what I had accomplished. So he took that, the same things he praised me for, the same things he was so happy about, the same thing he told me he couldn't believe that he bagged me. He tried to take that and ruin it little by little, break my wings little by little by little. And it worked for a little bit because, again, I didn't know what I was dealing with. I didn't know who I was dealing with. But when I figured it out, I was out. I was out. I was out. I could have easily stayed. This person tried to cripple me by moving me away from my family, moving me, knowing that I had a little baby, knowing that I didn't know anybody in this city, knowing all of these things. He tried to cripple me, and he thought it would work. And that's what they try to do. So I could have easily just went ahead, married him, get even more stuck with him. Worse yet, had a child by this person and be stuck with them for the rest of my life. A lot of these people, just before I forget this point, one of the things you have to watch out for these narcissists is that they are down low. And I've talked about that before. But not only that, a lot of these people carry a lot of diseases. They are struggling with their sexuality. They try a lot of new things. And because of that, they carry a lot of diseases. You have to be very, very careful. You have to insist on having protected S with these people. If you value yourself, if you value your life and your health, you got to be very, very careful with these people. You're dealing with demons. You are dealing with worthless humans who don't care about themselves. They hate themselves. And because of that, they're going to hate you. They're not going to protect you. Whatever they have, they're going to give it to you, disease-wise. So no, the narcissist does not get married because they're in so much love or because they are such great people and people are choosing to marry them and be with them. A lot of those people are trapped. A lot of those people are trapped. Again, read the comments. You will see that people are saying, I'm finally away from this person after 20 years. I'm finally away from this person after 15 years. That's a 20 years marriage. And if you saw that person when they were married to this person, you will say, wow, you've been married for 20 years? How amazing. But you don't even know what hell that person has been living through. So yeah, the narcissist can be in a long-term relationship, but it's not what you think. Their victims are victiming. Okay? Their victims are suffering. It takes a lot to get away from these people. That's why I commend anyone who has successfully gotten away from a narcissist, who has successfully fled the narcissist, who has successfully survived the narcissist. That is commendable, because if you truly have dealt with a narcissist, you know firsthand how painful, how life-changing that experience can be. So I commend you. If you are on that journey, I commend you. You are stronger than you know.
All right, guys, that's all I've got for you tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the lineup of the show today. I'll have some more structured shows for you guys later this evening. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully the conversation didn't trigger some of you too much, but that you got something from it and that you understood something about the other gender. All right, I'm going to send you off with some music. Excuse me, y'all, my throat is killing me. I'm going to send you off with some music. Do me a favor while you're here listening and enjoying. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, and I'll appreciate you. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Battles got power, Florabella stands tall. Every drip, every drop, watch the haters fall. Channel sharp as thorns, ain't taking no mess. Scroll through her feed, feel that queen's finesse. Vine tangle tight, but Flora breaks free. Roots so deep, can't mess with her tree. From the mud she rises, roses from the dirt. Every comment section she lays down hurt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. From the garden green to the concrete wall, Florabella, unstoppable nature's child. Leaves whisper secrets, she's the loudest shout. From the channel buzzing, she never backs out. Seed of strength, through season she grows. In the face of doubt, her spirit glows. Cameras ain't a limit, she branches out. Thorns in her crown, she wears it no doubt. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless. Flora's anthem, blooming under pressure. Resilient, resolving, no lesser. Florabella's reign strong and relentless. Beauty in battle, queen sure defenseless.
Florabella on my screen. Her smile, it shines so bright. She's a queen with every scene. In the morning or the night, recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Recipes and good vibes flow. Every video a gem. Her confidence, it grows and grows. We're inspired like her friends. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and all the lows, she remains so strong. Her spirit always glows. She's where we all belong. With every like and every share, we feel her energy. No storm too strong, she can't bear. She's setting us all free. Unstoppable Flora, she's got that power. Spreading her aura, blossoming like a flower. Through the highs and